this session?
Sam joined.
Yes. Okay, so the session is recording. So, yep. Okay. Yes, I'll just switch back to my screen sharing. Perfect. Okay. So, you can follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and SoundCloud. Instagram, I have 2 accounts, which is akshoots and wav.ak. I'm also a photographer and videographer for people who don't know. That's actually my main thing. I've been doing it for the last 6 years. I also work as a part-time job in a company over here. So I do photography, freelance photography and videography for them as well. SoundCloud is where I upload some of my music as well. I've been recently only active, even though I've had the account for years, but SoundCloud is where I am active now. So let's get started. So music production, according to me, I would say in today's music making world, the only rule is that there are no rules. Because why I would say that, just give me a second, I think it can be shown. Just give me a second. Super sorry. Yeah. So the only rule is that there are no rules, because you can literally record whatever you want and use it as a sample. You can automate effects and ways never even imagined before. You can literally mix rhythms and genres to create beats and melodies that go further and create new categories of music, all of their own kind. And however, just because we can do anything in music doesn't mean that we should. There are few rules and ethics which we can follow, and which, if we want to be really good in this field, we should follow. And no matter what type of music we make, we always want it to be really good music. We always want our music to be good. We want people and artists, other artists, to recognize our work. You want listeners to enjoy your music. So you want other people to enjoy listening to your tracks, to hear the message clearly and not to be distracted by a bad recording or a weak playing. So the example which I think is like a chef with a kitchen full of ingredients. There are myriad ways to put your masterpiece together, and it's also very easy to break it up. So what I would say is that there are 4 stages of music production. So stage 1 is songwriting. Stage 2 is recording and production. Stage 3 is editing or mixing. Mixing is more of a professional term. And then stage 4 is mastering. So there are no means set in stone and are based entirely on how I personally like to think about the process. So the breakdown is meant to be used as a general guideline, I would say, to help organize the process in our minds. So many times we do a few of these at once. So example like songwriting and arranging, we can do it at once. So generally we do the editing and mixing and tracking and everything together. But on an average, these are just gentle steps taken to produce a track. At the end of the day, all you need is the final outcome, and that's what you want to show to people. So it is helpful to also understand what goes into each stage, so we can actually execute it properly and get the best results. So before I get into detail of all these productions, I'm just again reminding all of you, if you have any questions in between, you can just come in and ask in any questions. If you have any doubts to be also cleared, I can clear it for you. So let's just get started with some basic music theory knowledge. So let's start with rhythm. So what I understand is that we take a set of notes and put them in a sequence. That is basically my understanding of rhythm. And this gives us a melody, which is the music. But just notes playing monotonically is not an expression of anything. It is just like beats, like just say a kick drum or a snare. It is just a beat. If you put it randomly, it might not sound good, but if you arrange them properly, it looks good. And that's where we add the concept of time in, which is a full note or a half note or a quarter note, which I'll be explaining, and so on. So now the melody with the content of time becomes a rhythm, and there is a beat to it. So therefore, to get the melody, we need notes, and any notes will do. And to get rhythm, we need the melody, which is a concept of time that is introduced by means of a beat. So beat is basically a periodic signal, more like a ticking clock. So there is a heartbeat which goes lub dub lub dub lub dub lub dub. There is a ticking clock which goes every second there is a tick. So that is also a beat. So same way, beats are generally together, or rhythm I would say instead of beats, are generally the ones which glue together with melody, and which is basically forming the song. So talking about tempo and beats. So people commonly use the word beat to mean a pattern or a rhythm played by drums. So the thing you're making when you create and play patterns in these lessons is a beat. But confusingly, there's another use of the word beat as well, which means a regular repeating pulse, as I said, like the heartbeat. So people tap their foot along with the beat in this context. So how I would explain that, or an example which I would give for that is, say, EDM or electronic dance music. There's always like a continuous beat which is continuously going, which makes your head also move or groove to the tone. So that's what I would say as a beat. So the speed at which your patterns play back is called the tempo. So tempo is measured in beats per minute or BPM. And if we talk about a piece of music being at 120 BPM, which means 120 beats per minute or 120 pulses every minute. Another thing which is a very important aspect in this is something called bars. So songs are made by pulling multiple bars of music together to form larger sections, and then putting these larger sections together, that is what creates the song. So most of you might be knowing the song called We Will Rock You by Queen, the band Queen. It was just a basic kick and a clap. So it was two kicks and a clap and then a space. So it was two kicks, 1 2, and another clap, 1, and then that was his thing. So and then there was a space. So that when you put it continuously together, it becomes one bar. So there's one bar, two bar. So generally when you're recording also, sound audio engineers will be knowing that the singer might, or even the pianist or anybody who's playing any instrument, will need a count off bar count off. So they'll say, give me a count off of 2 bars. So which means after 8, so 1 bar is generally known as 4 beats, and after 2 bars means 8 beats. So after 8 beats they'll start playing, so they can at least keep ready or get ready for it. Talking about next thing is tempo and genre. How are those both related? So the style or genre of a piece of music is determined by the number of factors, and the factors also include the types of sound and patterns it's used, and also the tempo. So tempo and genres play a relatively equal role. So if you say jazz music, it is a slower tempo. If you say disco music or like say dance pop music, it is a faster. If you say something like dubstep, that is also dub, not dubstep, but dub is slower and dubstep is a higher. Drum and bass is even faster. So you probably have some ideas about genre already of a song when you hear it, but just based on your experiences and a music listener, here are some typical tempo ranges. So dub ranges like from 60 to 90 BPM. Hip hop is from 60 to 100. House is from 115 to almost 135, 140. Then there is techno or trance, which is about 120 to 140 BPM. There's dubstep, which is even more faster, which is about 135 to 145. And then there's drum and bass, which is almost 160 to 180, which is really fast. Talking about genre, it's mainly a classification of grouping of what music can be formed or shaped like. So let's just get a bit into more detail of music theory, and let's talk about scales. So this is a scale. Most of you who play say piano or guitar generally know this. So a scale is a group of notes that are arranged by ascending or descending order of pitch. Now the word scale comes from the Latin word meaning ladder. So you can literally think of a scale climbing the rungs of a ladder, which is represented by the staff. So each degree of the scale has a special name. So if you see there is first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, so on, written on the screen. So that is basically the first degree is the tonic, second degree is the supertonic, third degree is the mediant, fourth degree is the subdominant, fifth degree is the dominant, sixth degree is the submediant, and seventh degree is the leading note or the leading tone. And the eighth degree of the scale is actually the tonic but an octave higher. So that is A B C D E F G. That is the 7 letters which are that it generally starts from C. It is C to B, which is generally known as. So for that reason only we naming the when naming the degrees of the scale, you should always call it the first degree. So you don't need to go much detail into this. You don't I'll be explaining all this in a completely different session, but just the basics of music production you would want to know for say keeping a track of what all you would want to know while producing. So you can think of a scale as something like an artist's palette of paint. It's a subset of all available notes chosen because of the way they relate to each other. So each type of scale has a distinct sound as well, and many people have particular emotional associations with particular scales. You can also build scales by adding more notes and specific distances or intervals above the tonic. The two most common types or qualities of scales are major and minor. So you must have definitely heard about major as well as minor scales. So now we'll be talking more about depth in them. So one of the more common types of the scale is the major scale. So major scales are defined by the combination of semitones and tones, which are whole steps and half steps. So if you can see over here, this is a tone which is currently over here, and that is a half step which is with a dash in the center. Sorry, that's a whole, and then that's again another semitone. So that's a tone, tone, that's a semitone, tone, tone, and another semitone. So that's basically whole, that's another whole, that's a half, that's a whole, 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 and a half. So again, as I said, we don't need to get much more into depth in this, but this is just for basic knowledge of music theory. Talking about minor scales, the second type of scale which we're going to look at is a minor scale. Minor scales also have 7 notes like the major scale, but they are defined by having a flattened third. So this means that the third note of the scale is the 3 semitones above the first note. So it's 1, that's again the semitone, which is the third tone is above the semitone. Unlike major scales where the third note of the scale is 4 semitones above. And they have 3 types of minor. So there's the natural minor, there's the harmonic minor, and then there's the melodic minor. So what do these major and minor scales try to convey? It basically tries to convey emotions in a song, or how the different emotions will act, or how a different scale or a different chord can change the emotion of a song. So let's take about this. So this is a major scale which is generally happy, so can be majestic or sentimental when slow. So the white keys on the piano are examples like Mary Had a Little Lamb or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So those are really happy songs which bring out happiness in you. So those are the emotions which are related to this scale, which is the major scale. If we move on further, so there is a difference between F and F sharp in this. So this is called as the Lydian mode. So this is more like a dreamy or a futuristic, same pitches as a G major as well. So examples can be possibly maybe by Bork from the line "As much as I defined or enjoy solitude." So that is another one. This is a harmonic major scale, so like Lord of the Rings, so it or Game of Thrones as well. So this is basically giving you a majestic or a mysterious feel as well. This is a Mixolydian B6. Again, I'll just rush through this because you might not want to go this in detail. This is another minor scale, so this will give you something like sentimental or tragic. Some pitches are same pitches as E flat major. Then there is the Dorian mode, there is a harmonic minor scale, there's a melodic minor scale. So those are just like basic emotions. Next, what we're going to be talking about is a pitch. Now pitch is basically the quality that allows us to classify a sound as is whether it's a relatively high or a low. Whether it's a high or a low sound. So pitch is determined by the frequency of the sound wave vibrations. That is basically what pitch is all about. So now we're going to be moving on to bass line and melody. So do you guys have any questions so far? I've still not yet got into the main song writing and production part of it yet, but if you guys have any questions, you're always free. So bass lines. So bass lines are basically patterns of low pitched notes. So all of you know that even in this picture, that's a bass guitar, and they have 4 strings. They are pretty long as well, and that generally gives a very low pitched note sound. It's not something like a guitar where it's high pitches or it has you can play chords in this, but at the same time it is going to be very low chords, and they often serve to reinforce the song's chords while also using the interesting rhythmic patterns that relate or contrast with the drums. So that is all about bass lines, which you have to know for now, because I'll be still explaining when it comes to songwriting and also gears, so that time I'll be explaining. Talking about melodies, it is generally what is played in a piano or a guitar. So like bass lines, melodies are also patterns of single notes, but it's more of a mix of high pitch and low pitch. So while bass lines are very low pitch, melodies are also generally high pitched and define the identity of the song in many styles of music. So if you ask someone to sing a particular song, they'll usually sing the melody of the song. So melodies are often sung but may also be played by almost any instrument. So it can be also played in a guitar, it can also be played in a keyboard. But melodies are also often much more rhythmically active than a bass line and may also cover a much more widened range of notes. So that's when chords come to place, and chords can also be played, multiple chords can be played for a single song, whereas bass lines generally have the same chord which is stretched out throughout a bar or two bars. So that is everything about song or music theory which we have covered so far, and now we are going to go and dive into songwriting. So what is songwriting? Sorry. So a good song in terms of content will depend on the listener or the person who you're playing the music for and what they are drawn to. So it's completely subjective. However, a good song in terms of craft can be identified more objectively and will usually have all the elements listed. So as we already spoke about, so it'll have melody, it'll have harmony, rhythm, it'll have a beginning, middle, and basically have a structure, and will be put together in a way that's pleasantly recognizable, and while still being creative and true to the message of the music, it will be all together or in a form. So that's what creates a song. So when it comes to lyrics, I think of it like a prosody, like how the lyrics and music work together to support each other, and it's basically in contrast, and not exactly in contrast, but they're basically made for each other, what I would say. So it's not enough to only have good lyrics from a literary perspective, but they also need to sound musical when the singer sings them. So it'll be annoying also, right? When, say, suppose you have amazing good melody, you have an amazing bass line, but then the pitch of the song when you're singing is slightly off. So that'll be really annoying. So that's why you have multiple, multiple, how do I describe this? Sorry, my bad. Uh, multiple I'm super sorry over here, but as you get it, like multiple things like melody, harmony, rhythm, beginning, middle, and multiple characteristics. I'm so sorry. Yeah, but anyways, the melody, what the singer sings, will fit in with the harmony, what the guitar, bass, and synths mostly play, and in a way that's pleasing to the ear, using repetition to help the listener get used to the chord progression before transitioning to the next section and a different set of chord progressions. So throughout your song, you would want to keep variety, because if you keep the same bass line and the same melody and same harmony for the entire song, people will get bored. Even if your lyrics are different, people will get bored. So that's why you would want a different verse as well. Coming to songwriting as well, you would want to be innovative, and you will want to come up with different lyrics. You would not want to repeat that same verse. Chorus, at least you can repeat once or twice or maximum 3 times, but verse, you will have to come up with something much more efficient and as well as much more interesting, so that your song will be hooked onto and the listener will be very catchy. Basically, a song needs to be catchy. And a good song will also have a good sense of rhythm and can make your foot tap with the groove. So say something like, one of the songs which I completely relate that with is Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. That has, like, the moment the bass line and the kick drum starts playing, your head automatically grooves to that song, and the bass line also, your feet tap or something like that happens. So whether a drummer is not playing or not, that does not make a difference, but even if it's just a bass line, it needs to make a difference. So what is songwriting? So songwriting is basically a process of putting ideas, musical ideas, together to form a structure of melody, harmony, and rhythm. So where do you start? This is generally a step which many people are confused about, and people also ask me quite a bit that where do I start songwriting? I don't have any ideas. So first I would say is brainstorming. Read a lot of articles, listen to a lot of music. It does not mean that um, just one fine day you will come up with an idea. You will have to get inspiration from somewhere, so you need to start brainstorming. Listen to a lot of music. That is a thing how you produce good music as well. Listen to a lot of genres, so you will get an idea that you can concentrate on a specific genre. If you're a mixed artist meaning that a person who focuses on multiple genres and multiple musical instruments as well, you can do that as well. But read a lot of books. So few books which I would recommend. You can also listen to a lot of podcasts as well, but these are few books which I would definitely recommend try and reading it. I think writing better lyrics is paid by Pat Patterson, but I'll try and find a online link for it, or the link which I found, and then I'll try and share it with all of you. And then after that, research. The main process with researching is that, again, with listening and listening to audiobooks or reading multiple videos, you'll have to research on more about genres what you want to concentrate on. So say suppose you're concentrating about hip hop, so read about artists and their stories on how they produce music, so you will get inspirations and references where you can say when you're producing music, you can refer to those artists on how they produce music, and you can do that as well. Another thing which you need to be is be original. Never try to copy anyone's style. I've listened to a lot of artists saying this, that do not be like me, don't copy me, you can be a better me. And the main thing which I wonder is, why do they tell that? The reason being is that if you have the potential of, or if you have self-confidence on being better than them, why do you want to be them? Okay, you can have an inspiration like them, you can become, you can have an inspiration by trying to be like them, but just don't copy the style. Even I don't like doing that. So I would rather be original than I would rather be producing 2 songs in a year which are completely original, rather than copying somebody's style and lyrics and just producing like 100 songs a year. And then you start, but before you start, how do you produce all this? It just does not come from thin air. So let's talk about gear. A very fun part. I can literally go on talking for gear for multiple years together, but let's just be short and precise over here. So as I already mentioned in my stories as well, I'm going to be talking main about artists who have very minimal resources, and by minimal resources I mean a phone or a laptop. So let's start with few apps, or most of these apps you might already be knowing. So first is BandLab. BandLab is an app which you can use on your phone as well as desktop. You can note these down if you want, and or when I go to YouTube you can again rewatch it. But BandLab helps you create, it's like any other software or DAW as well. But this is a really good application, and you can also create some really good music in it. If you're an iPhone user, you can use music memos. I think this is supported from iPhone 7 and above. You can record multiple instruments in this and also mix them. It is a bit more, say something like voice memos or like a voice recorder, but you can export music, and it's a pretty good application as well. Another one which probably everybody knows is GarageBand. GarageBand is a very popular. It comes free if you're using a Mac. It comes free in the Mac, or it is also a free application on the iPhone as well, which you're using. So this is really good for producing vocals and recording guitars. I know Rohan uses BandLab and GarageBand as well. Even I used to use it. I started with that as well. So that is a really good application. The another thing is real guitar. So any guitarists out here, anybody who plays guitar over here, or beginners who play guitar, you can use real guitar. Or even if you just want to know the sense of chords, I prefer real guitar, because the thing is that you can set and learn guitar chords really easily. You don't need to pay for expensive classes or anything. There are of course millions and millions of tutorials which are there, online free resources which you can use. But this is an offline app, and you can literally play any chords, and you can also, if you're producing something on GarageBand, you can learn the chords first in real guitar and then produce it in GarageBand. So this is really good. Something about chord progressions. So for those people who don't know about chord progressions, it's basically where if you start a chord progression, it's basically a chord which will take you on a loop. So it will keep on going. It means progression, which means it won't be the same chord, it'll be multiple chords. So it'll be generally 3 or 4 chords put together. So this is an application, I'm not sure of the name, but you can just type it in your phone and see for chord progressions, and you can find any app which is free will do. And basically again, you can learn about chords, same like guitar. Next, as you already saw, it's AUXY Pro. This is a really good application. I use it. The interface is also really good, and I mean it's almost as equal to a DAW like Cubase or something. Any of you using Cubase over here, you will completely look at AUXY Pro. It's also a free software compared to Cubase. So next is Beat Maker Go. Any drummers in the house? I know Rishi is a drummer. So this can literally it's like a drum pad. So those who know a drum pad, so this is basically a drum pad in your phone which you can use. You can customize the sounds and use it, and it is just perfect. It gives, you can connect it, you can record it, you can also play it back, and then you can export it to GarageBand, and you can also play it. It's there in Android and iOS as well. So all these apps which I'm talking about, there are multiple apps of the same thing which does the same thing, so you can just explore them and go through them. Another is Discogs. This is Discogs. So I'm not sure exactly of the. I think this is only Discogs, but again, this looks like Logic Pro X or some other. So this is another software which you can use. It's called Discogs. I think it's free only. I'm not sure. I've not used this before, but when I was researching for this presentation, I saw that this also works well, and some of my friends also use this. So it's a really good application. Again, you've got everything like pads, synths, bass, everything you can use over here and access, and you've also got a mixer as well down here, so you can access it. It's there both in your iPad as well as iPhone. So what all do you need if you're producing it on a computer? So now we are going to be talking about more like studio kind of production. So for a computer, you would need a computer to start with. So we were already talking. So I would prefer a laptop over a PC, as it is way more easier for moving around in lightweight. Of course, all of you have your own personal opinions, but personally, I would prefer a laptop, because the thing is, when you're being in a creative field like this, you will always want to be on the go. It's better that you have a MacBook Pro instead of an iMac, because iMac you can't just carry anywhere and go. MacBook Pro, you can literally just flip it out of your bag, use it in a bus, close it, work, go, move it on the go. You can do your editing, you can do your mixing, anything just on the go. A good MacBook which I would recommend is the MacBook Air 13-inch or the MacBook Pro 13-inch, is what we were just discussing. That comes out about 4,000 to 5,000 dirhams range, and it's very good. If you want, you can go for Windows as well, but I would prefer a Mac any day above Windows. That is just, again, my personal opinion. Talking about software or DAW, so you call it a DAW, it's called a digital audio workstation, and this is where you produce your main music. So the first one is Avid Pro Tools. It's a paid, I think it's about $8 or $9 a month if you're using student discount. Logic Pro X is about, you can get a crack version. Yeah, so this is how a DAW looks like. So there are multiple tracks and everything. So FL Studio is free. This is called Fruity Loops Studio. That is free. I'm not sure about how much Ableton is, but Suhas, you have any idea on how much Ableton is?
Yeah, the Ableton Live Suite costs around $800.
Is that a one-time payment for the license?
Yes, it's a one-time payment,
Yeah.
and FL Studio is actually paid.
Okay,
And you
sorry,
have
my
like
bad.
you have like different versions in that. You have like producer edition.
Yeah,
You
and
have the
trial.
signature bundle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
you have the signature bundle, and you have like the signature bundle with all the plugins.
Correct, true.
So that is around like $1,000. The signature edition is like $1,000.
$1,000 is
And
almost 3,600 dirhams.
yes, and the Logic Pro will cost you 800 dirhams.
Yeah, 750 to 800 or 15,000 rupees if you're.
800 dirhams.
Yeah, correct. So
Yes.
Fruity Loops, you can actually get the free version, and it also is really good. I know like so many artists who use it, dubstep and trap, and it's basically amazing. If you, the trial version is itself more than enough. I started using that, but
Yeah.
you can use Logic Pro X as well. I use a crack version of Logic Pro X. Avid Pro Tools I use for my college, so that I have paid for it. But apart from that, yes, Logic Pro X is also really good. Avid Pro Tools is also really good. I would actually use both. I would use Logic Pro X for the for the production part of it, because it's very easy to produce in Logic Pro X, and I would use the Pro Tools for mixing. I'll get to that as well. So this is actually a free app called Logic Remote. I'm not sure whether any of you who use Logic Pro know about this, but this is basically a mixing console which you can use in your iPhone or your iPad, and and it's a free application. So if you buy the Logic Pro X, this is a free application. Without Logic Pro X, you can't just use this. But this literally gives you, so if you don't have a MIDI keyboard, this will convert your iPad into a MIDI keyboard, and you can literally record it into Logic Pro X. It's a really good application. It's called Logic Remote. You can also use it as a drum pad. So if you have an iPad, you can use it as a drum pad, or if you have a phone, you can also use it as a drum pad. Next thing which you will want is a audio interface. So an audio interface is basically it's an interface where you can plug in your microphone and your say your guitar or your drums or your microphones, basically for recording any instrument, and then it will be connected to your computer and record. So it's not just that you plug in your microphone directly to your laptop, because the microphones use something called XLR cables, and that you can't just, because there's no XLR port in your this thing. So that's what helps with the audio interface. So the best audio interface which I would go for is the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, which I'm currently showing the picture. Hands down one of the best audio interfaces. For the price as well, it's about 1,000 dirhams, like 800 dirhams. I think now it's on discount as well on Amazon. You'll get some really good deals on all gear, because everything is low, and as all of you know, the COVID-19 situation, so prices are dropping really well. Even I picked up myself a microphone as well. So the audio interface is really good, and it's really important as well, and you can monitor everything. There are plugs on the back end side as well, ports on the back end side, which you can connect to external speakers. Next thing which you want, headphones. Very, very important. Always use headphones over
One second.
earphones. Yes, Was, tell me.
So in the Focusrite, the preamps are like the award-winning preamps what they have. So it's really good for the price.
Correct.
It's worth.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. I mean, like 1,000 dirhams. So the thing is, for most beginners over here who are attending the session, like even for the softwares and all, most of you will be thinking like $1,000 and all is a lot. Logic Pro X, why should I pay $800 for a software? You can use free. I'm completely agree with you. Even I thought in the beginning, but how much that has helped me now producing it, and that too if you're taking it as your work, or even if you're doing it hobby as a professional, it helps you a lot. And if you're willing to get paid through it, it totally pays off.
It's more of an investment, Ayush.
Yes.
To be very frank.
Exactly. I was just coming to that. So it is more of an investment compared to just buying it, because so even if I'm paying like what $9 a month, it is like a Netflix subscription. It is, instead of just, it's not entertainment for me, but it's more work related. So I think it's whether will it help me work related, or if it's just a time pass or entertainment. This is not time pass. This is actually my work. So coming to headphones, this is you can buy some amazing so why headphones are really important is you need good headphones for mixing. So I'll come to speakers as well in the end, but headphones I would prefer, because it's way easier carrying than speakers. If you have a home studio, you can use speakers as well, but headphones I still prefer. The good headphones are by Audio Technica. It's the ATH M50X. That's about 600 dirhams. Currently the prices keep on fluctuating, but you can always keep an eye on good deals. ATH M30X is also there, really good. It's about 300 dirhams. Another thing which I want you guys not to do is buy bass boosted headphones or Bluetooth headphones. Now, Bluetooth headphones do not help, because few frequencies like bass frequencies are boosted in this, which means in your final outcome, when you're listening to your thing, like say in big speakers, you need studio headphones, which means there is literally nothing calibrated in this. It is just connected directly to your audio interface, and you can there is literally no frequencies. But so that's why I made a mistake in my first song, which of my RYTHM album, which was Siki Mama. I used this headphones for mixing. I played it on my TV, and all I could hear is the bass. Literally, I did not even have any software. I was doing that in GarageBand. I did not have a microphone as well. I used my phone to record it. So that was literally a mistake which I did, and now I've rectified that mistake by buying and investing, as Suhas said, in good pair of headphones. So the ATH M30X is about 300 dirhams. That's a really good price for headphones. Next, the main important part is the microphone and a pop filter. So currently is what I'm using. So this is a Scarlett Studio. Yes, it's part of a bundle. So another thing which you need to know with microphones is, so in order to record, you'll need to enable something called phantom power. Does anybody know what phantom power is apart from the audio engineers or anybody?
Ayush, please tell them about the different kinds of microphones.
Yes, I'm getting into that. So you need to enable phantom power for your microphones on your audio interface. So these kind of microphones, nearly all condenser microphones with a cardioid pickup pattern. So the kind which I recommend you to buy as well require a power source specifically called 48 volts or an external power. So if you see over here, there is this button called 48 volts. So if you're plugging in a microphone like a condenser microphone currently as what I'm using, you need to enable that for external power. Now of course this is just, I'm going around just in brief, so I'm not explaining everything in detail. But apart from that, your audio interface can also provide it, but you'll need to press the button or flip a switch, as what I said in the Scarlett 2i2. So consult your audio interfaces manual as well, because few audio interfaces, I think like Behringer and everything, they have a special button. It's not named as 48 volt, it's some other name. So you will have to go through them, but mainly it's just meant as 48 volt or anything. I wish I could check and show you my real audio interface now, but it's currently plugged in and I'm using it. So the good microphone which I would recommend is the 80-20-20, which is about 400 dirhams. It's again a cardioid condenser microphone, and a pop filter is really necessary for cancelling out few frequencies like the hisses and the breaths which you take. So
The plosives, yeah.
yes, so I'm just going to give a live demonstration. So this is without the pop filter. So of course you can see a little bit peaks in my sound, and with the pop filter there comes slightly a difference. If you're using headphones, you'll definitely know the difference. So there is a bit of difference now. The hissing sound, everything is removed so that you would not want it. So now I'm going to talk about the bundle which I bought. So the bundle is this Scarlett Studio. It's the Pro Bundle Mark III. It was for about 1000 dirhams. It's a really good deal, which comes with the microphone, which is the Scarlett Solo Studio, and then the headphones as well, which is the HP Mark III, I guess, and the audio interface. So all this three together for 1000 dirhams, it's a beginner steal. I mean, I would recommend this for any person who's going for audio and music production out there. It's very light. It connects to your laptop through USB Type C, and it's got basic functions like 48 volt. It's got some new mode called air mode as well, which I really like. So that basically means when you're singing something like falsettos or really high pitch, that means it cuts out few of the very peaking and basically gives you a more dynamic range for recording your voice. You can also connect a guitar to it, and an instrument and direct monitors are also available. And currently what you're listening to, I've actually plugged that into my laptop, and I've just literally, even any YouTube video also, there is a difference when you listen to in a bass boosted headphone and a studio headphone, and the way which I listen to music has also differently changed. So next thing which you'll need is XLR cables. So these are what XLR cables look like. So you can get some basic XLR cables for about 50 dirhams to 60 dirhams, and it's really good to also have one. So this red cable currently over here, this is what is connected, and it is pretty good. Talking about studio speakers. Now speakers are completely optional, because I'll be talking about the next slide and how to build your home studio as well. So good speakers are about 800 to 1000 dirhams, and again it's more like an investment. And I'm talking about the Yamaha HS5 or HS7. That's what even Suhas recommend for me, which I'm planning on getting once I acoustically treat my room. The thing with speakers is that it's not like your headphones, because headphones is directly, there is a contact with your ear, which means that none of the outside noise is coming. But with speakers, especially if you buy something like pre-Sonus, or there are a few speakers banned for which you can get for 200 dirhams or 300 dirhams. Like there's this HP speaker which I used to use for my this was just connected with a normal, it was not even like treated or anything, and it used to sound so crap. Like it used to sound very, very bad because the output out of cheap speakers are not that great. You need to invest. You'll be like, what is this? Is this even my song which I recorded? It is not at all good. Just because you need to buy the speakers, just don't go for cheap ones. Invest, and probably invest in a speaker which will run for you in a long run. Now another thing is, I understand that all this is really, really expensive, like 1000 dirhams, 800 dirhams, and especially for students who go to school and who are like not yet earning yet. Again, as I said, it's more of an investment. If you're serious about music production, definitely go for it, hands down. But you don't even need to get everything. So the speakers are completely optional. You can do things, the same things with the speakers with the headphones. Not at all a problem. So any questions so far? Anyone? Okay, cool. Then we'll move ahead. So coming about home studio, how to set up your home studio. For me as well, personally, my home studio has been, I just like recently bought all this new gear once I got into college that was in January. And it's been more like of I would say changing phase for me now from school to college. So, and as I want to take this further, so I wanted to make sure that my music also sounds good. That's why I invested in really good gear. So a home studio, so ideally all of us would record in a room that like lets in little to literally no outside noise, and you want it to be acoustically treated. So what do I mean by acoustically treated? So generally you would want in your room for reverberations to be cancelled out. So this room is currently not acoustically treated, which means if you I can just do a test. So it's currently really loud, my microphone, and if I'm just currently clapping, you could hear reverberations, which is what I don't want in when I'm recording my noise. If you want extra reverberations, that's not a problem, but you don't want general reverberations to come in your sound. So realistically, and however, all of us are going to record where we can, and necessarily to set, we don't even necessarily need to professional recording environment. So the best which I prefer is carpeted rooms, or just add a carpet or a blanket, not a blanket but a carpet. Like you get good carpets for about 200 300 dirhams. I'm not talking about big ones, at least below. So below my table there is quite a big carpet. So you can just use carpets and curtains and beds. So the more furniture you have, you can cut out. So another thing which you can get is acoustic blankets. Have any of you heard about acoustic blankets? So acoustic blankets literally just allow you to cut out frequency. So if you have a side panel and if you're recording, say this is your microphone, so there are something called vocal booths. So it is basically a cylindrical structure which isolates your voice. That's what you want when recording vocals. Just give me a second. I'm so sorry to take a sip of water. Thank you. So back to what I was saying is, yeah, so if your walls produce too much reverberation, you can also hang acoustic blankets to reduce that effect. So close your curtains, dampen the room as much as possible. Another pro tip, I'm not sure whether all of you have heard about this. If you're recording vocals, I generally record it, so it's currently on a scissors arm, which means I can move my microphone up and down. I take my blanket or say a light bed sheet, and I switch off the fan, dampen the entire room, put it around me and record it. Trust me, it cuts off the reverberation at least 60 to 70%. It does not work completely, but if you have a much more thicker blanket, if you're ready to like sweat completely because it becomes quite hot when the fan is not there, etc. And I generally record during the night time because then it's not too hot, and I sit right beside the window, so it is quite hot as well. So you can make sure that no fan or no AC is there. If you have AC or fan going, make sure you switch it off. Take a blanket, put it around yourself and record, and trust me, at least 70 to 80% of the sound is going to get isolated, which is just amazing. Now so you need to how you will, Yeah, okay, so anybody has a question? Okay, fine. So now how do you, so once you have already had all your gear set up and everything, how do you actually record the audio? So once you have handled the previous steps, you just need to plug in everything and install drivers and softwares. Once you've purchased all that, depending on the hardware and software you chose, the setup process will vary. For some it's easy. So for the Focus Scarlett, what I do is I always make sure my microphone and my guitar amp is always plugged in, and I have routed my cables so that, if you can see, this is my guitar cable. So I just take my guitar, plug it in, and I'm easy ready to go. Now if you cannot do something like this, make sure that you have your cables and everything sorted out, so that if you want to record anything instantly as well, it's very easy to. It's not like, do not make sure that it's not stored in any boxes. So like I have a similar setup to what it is there. So I have a simple table. I don't have speakers yet. So I have a MIDI keyboard which is right beside me over here. So even then, even if I'm playing something on my MIDI keyboard as well, I can access my microphone. So it is just a very user friendly setup, I would say. And it's a simple run and go setup, which means I can just remove the microphones at the same time and take it with me. I can unscrew this from here, take it with me. So even if I want to record somewhere else as well, I can easily do it. So you need to have a user-friendly setup. There is no point of having like multiple speakers, monitors, and cables plugged into the back and then removing it. I just feel that it's too cumbersome. And if you are, again, as I said, on the go with any of this production field or creative field, it's just best that you have a run and go setup. So you can also look up in your manuals and everything on how to record or how to set up your entire thing, but it's pretty easy for the Scarlett because you just plug it in to your computer and then it's good to go. You don't literally need to do anything. The headphones are always over here, so it's not that I switch between headphones for my YouTube videos or any other. I use this only for all my calls and everything as well. So recording audio. So first thing you need to do is knowing your software. So interface elements vary between different DAWs. So we're going to call it DAW instead of a software because it's called digital audio workstation, and that's what is more of a professional term. But they embody the same idea. So there are different DAWs, as we already spoke, like Fruity Loops, there is Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic Pro, Cubase. So let's take a look at some of the common parts you'll need to know about in your software, because that's why you're going to in your DAW, because that's why you're going to record. So first thing is your project window. So do note that this is my actual project window from my project. So this is how it looks. So over here on the top, you've got all your controls over here. Can all of you see it? I hope that you're on a computer, so it can be a big screen and you can see it at the same time. So you've got all your controls over here. This is basically all your controls. So all this I'll explain in a another session when I'm detailing only in Pro Tools, and I'll also be talking about how to record in Pro Tools, then how to assign tracks and everything. But mainly that so this is basically the main control panel, I would say. This is your pause, play, record, stop button and everything. All these are your count off bars and everything. And this is all your tracks. This is where you'll record all the audio. So I actually recorded all this audio in this and then did the editing. So this is your main project window. So this is in Pro Tools, which you'll have. Even Logic Pro, it has the same. And this is your mix window. So of course it's a lot colorful. I'll talk about why I did that. That's because to color code my tracks, even if you see multiple projects for films and everything, is generally, so the green is the acoustic guitar, this is the electric guitar, this is a guitar with for the chorus, this is my vocals, this is another vocals by another person, and this is the bass, this is the MIDI bass, this is the actual bass we played, this was the MIDI bass, and this was the synth. So trust me, I'm not even joking, this was the final end result. This is what the project looked like in the beginning. I'm not even joking. This was the electric guitar, acoustic guitar, bass, MIDI bass, vocals, synth. The same thing. This was the mix window. I did not even touch any of the mixes for it. And you can write comments and everything below. I'm just going to get that to it in a second. But this is how it looks. So you need to work on your mixes really hard. And I'll also be explaining why mixing is very, very crucial for your song. So as I said, so all of this are different elements and compressors and reverbs and everything. So you need to understand your project window first. So whenever you open your software or DAW, it is generally looking like this. So this is a dashboard where you can set up the projects, or you can set up the details for the project. So you can select the file type, you can select the sample rate, IO settings, bit depth. You can there are a few templates as well. So if you want to do a kind of genre of music like dubstep or electronica or drum and bass, all those are as well as there. You can access your recent projects and other projects as well, and you can basically use this for setting up your project. So to get started, so first create a new project by selecting new project in the file menu. So this is the file menu, and select empty as a project type. So you will basically get just a empty plain project template. So it'll generally ask you where you want to save your project in the beginning itself, so that all the audio files and everything can be saved to that one same location, so it's easier to access. So another thing which comes over there is hard drives. I generally use hard drives more than my Mac, because audio files, even though are much more less complicated than video files, audio files still require a lot of rendering and processing. So that's why I would prefer audio file hard drive over my actual Mac. So I still store the applications and everything on my Mac, but I store the actual project and files on my hard drive, and that way I use faster hard drive so that it copies the files very easily. So this is what Logic Pro X looks like. It's of course very similar, but the interface is a bit more different. So here again, this is from another one of my projects. So this is when you're actually doing it for a video or a movie. This is the movie over here, and then you've got all the, these are different groups over here. So if I actually click on this, I don't have a screenshot of it, but I'll try and do it after the presentation. But if I actually click on any one of those, I can literally, there are groups of different. So there's a kick, there's one group, there is a snare, there's another group. There might be a second snare which I used in a different timing, that will be another group. So it is very easy. So if you actually see, there are up to like 75 tracks, 82 tracks. So from 1 to 610, it cannot just directly jump to 29 and then 75. So there are different tracks involved in that. And this is the intro on how it looks for Logic Pro X. So again, you've got your tempo, which you can set. All this you can also set later, but it's better you set over here and use the default settings. So as we saw in Pro Tools as well, you've got electronic, you've got songwriting, orchestral, music for pictures. So if you're editing or mixing any songs, so Sharan and Adarsh, both of you will know, Sharan will know because he's a music film student. So music for picture, you will be doing and handling something with this. So let's just get back mainly. So after showing, so after you do this, after you show and do your dashboard, you will have to come to your main project window. So before you can start recording, you need to make sure on whatever DAW you are using, whether it can find your interface, because the machine also needs a certain set of instructions and routing on how it can identify your audio interface, how it can identify your guitar and microphone, and what all inputs are there. Because the microphone and guitar, and if you're recording like drums, there are like 7-8 different microphones. All microphones cannot be put into one separate input. So your audio interface, sorry, your DAW needs to know where it is being routed to. So you can check your DAW setting online on how to route different microphones and guitars or instruments. So once you do that, you can set up your output, which is your headphones or speakers. I would of course prefer headphones while recording, because if you use your speakers, you need to be in a separate room, else you'll get a leak. So basically it'll go into your microphone again. So once you set up your output, now that your inputs and outputs are already properly routed, create a new track on your edit or project window. So this is going to be something, it's either called the project or edit window, and this is called your mix window. This is where you do the second part, which is the mixing. So when a new track window appears, just create a track and configure it to mono, because we are just recording it from a single microphone. You don't need a stereo track. In fact, you'll rarely choose stereo also, even when recording from two microphones, because you likely prefer to have the channels separated. So that's why each channels are separated. All these are recorded in stereo, which means over here let me just skip a few slides, because right over here, so this is stereo to the left, stereo to the left. These are all pannings which I'm doing to the right. So all this is actually the same track. It's the same vocals, all of this. Vocals Ayush left, vocals Ayush left 1. So it's basically a duplicate. There are just 3 duplicates of this main track, and I've just panned it to the left, which means it will help me with effects, or which I will come to, which in a later stage of mixing. But anyways, once you have done that, by default the new track should have its recording enabled toggle. So if you see over here, there is red buttons over here. So when in Pro Tools, if you want to record, click on the red button and basically it will record to that track, because if you're having multiple tracks, it will not know which track to record on. In Logic Pro X over here, there is this R button over here with the red R over here. So you just click that, means it will record in that track. It is that simple. So all you have to do is push the button, and once you do that, beneath you'll see the track name, so you can rename the track. You can add comments, so if you want, you can add in the microphone which you have used, which artist, if you're working with multiple artists, which type of a guitar, which type of bass, all that for your own reference. So once you click the record button, so once you set up your entire microphone, guitars, everything, press the space bar, so it'll give a count off of 2 bars over here, as it said. Once the count bar is done, you can say your artist to perform, or if you're recording it, you can start recording it. Once you start recording, after you've recorded the entire song, press space bar and you're done. That is pretty much it. So when finished recording, press the stop button and then you're pretty much done. So another thing is, if you are trying to do vocals and guitar together, I wouldn't recommend it, because I tried doing that as well. But when I'm playing my guitar, technically the microphone is also picking up the guitar noise. So even if I connect it with a jack, which means even if I connect it with a TRS cable, which is a tip ring sleeve cable, the microphone is also picking. So if I want to adjust certain frequencies in my vocals, that the vocals will since the vocals is recorded through this mic, the guitar will also have the guitar will also be recorded in the mic, which means that the frequencies which I don't want to be increased in my guitars will also be increased, which I do not want. So that's why you record it separately and mix all this. So I did not record the guitars and vocals and all together in this. Even in my music which I do, I all record it separately only. So now that is entirely about the production. Let's get into mixing. So as the word mixing says, mixing is the process of combining all the instruments you've recorded into a stereo 2-track mix. So that means left as well as right sound, or surround, if that's your thing. So a good mix will let you hear all the instruments clearly and with detail. So there are different types of mixing as well, on what all mixing can be done, but it'll have a depth and motion as well. So it'll have it'll sound good and support the intention of the music. So mixing is really crucial, because a mixing can literally break or make a music. That's what even our lecturer in college says, because without mixing, all the instruments together are not in sync. It's just plain volume, which means that all sound very jarry and very harsh. So with mixing, you can control each and every sound, and you can decide on what frequencies and what sounds you want to be increased and what you don't want to be increased. So the amount of decisions that are made during a mixing process, numbers are in thousands. So as I already said before, over here, this I literally had just 5 tracks, 1 2 3 4 5 6 tracks, and this is a master track, which means this controls all these tracks. So 6 tracks, no mixing done to it. All of them are literally, there's no inserts, compared to this picture where I've done so much of mixing and so much of EQing, which I will get to right in a second. Another thing is that you never end a mix, you only abandon it, because mix is totally something which is a personal choice. One person will like it. So suppose if I like my own mix, one person will like it, one person will not like it. So the thing with the mix is that you can only abandon the mix, which is you can never end a mix, you can only abandon it. You can end the production, you can say the production is stopped, but the mixing part of it you always only abandon because it's always a personal choice. Now what about if you're doing it for a big production? It depends on the production artist or and the recording engineer. They come on a mutual terms and then they abandon the mix together. So as we are speaking about mixing, let's talk about fades. So fades is something called fade in and fade out, or this is as known as a cross fade, which means when there are two tracks which are coming together. Say suppose in this track over here, I'm not sure whether you can see it clearly, but in the ending of the green there is a slanting line below, which means it's a fade out. In the beginning over here there is a fade in, which means it is from 0 decibels, it's from infinity decibels, it's going all the way till 0 decibels. So basically from minus it's coming to plus. So you can literally control the different mixing and whatnot. So that's just basics of fade. Now let's get into more of EQing. So this is the EQing for vocals. So equalization, or EQing as it's known, is one of the most well-known forms of audio processing in the entire music production. It enables you to adjust the volume level of a frequency or a certain frequency. As you can see here, there is 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, or that's the human range capacity which we can hear. So that is 20, that is 50, 100, that's 500, that's 800. I'm not sure, it's a small screen. That's 1K, that's 5K, that is 10K, and that's 20K. So this is basically, it enables you to adjust the volume level of a certain frequency or a range of frequency. Like say over here I've adjusted from 1K till 2K, I've peaked it a bit, which means it adjusted only that certain frequency. So sometimes also for entire songs you can adjust it, or also for its imperfections. So this is done by cutting unwanted frequencies or boosting others. So this is a boost and this is cutting. So this is for vocals. So I would just tell the ranges of what all it's known as. So there is a sub bass which ranges from 20 hertz to 60 hertz. There's a bass which ranges from 60 hertz to approximately 250 hertz. Low mids from 250 to approximately 1500. This is high mids, or a high mid frequencies, or a high mid, which is basically 1500 to 4000. Presence is another type of a range which from 4000 hertz to approximately 7000 hertz, and brilliance is the highest, which from 7000 all the way till 20,000 hertz. So that is a big chunk of range as well. So this is vocals. So note that EQing is not the same for everything. So this is for vocals and this is for bass. This is for an electric guitar. This is for vocals, this is for electric guitar. You see how the red portion over here is lower, which means I'm cutting few of the frequencies which are up till almost 70 or 80 hertz. I'm cutting all those frequencies because I don't want it. It might have been probably too bassy. So, or it might have been much more chunk of bass might have been in that. That's why I did not want that. And I've increased the high mid frequencies over here in this green part, which means I've done the mixing over here. In the vocals I did not want this high mid frequency, so that's why I brought it to the lower end compared to the high mid frequencies which I've increased over here. So EQing is completely different for every single track. You can use creative EQing as well. Creative EQing helps you in designing for 8D audio. Any of you know what 8D audio is? So it gives you a surround, or like Dolby 5.1, 7.1. So that's basically surround sound. So even in films, when you're seeing or even editing, there is few sounds which you can hear only from the right hand side. So when a car is coming, that is basically a certain creative EQing which is done. So EQing and panning both are used in that. Next, what we're going to be talking about is reverb. Now, so what exactly is reverb? So as we already spoke about reverberation being cut out, we already said that we don't want reverberation to be there. Then why do we add extra reverb? So simply put, it's the sound of a space. So you see every space has a sonic signature, and think about the sound of a footsteps inside a huge cathedral. So in a church, when you're walking, there is huge ceilings, which means there's going to be huge reverberation. So actually over here It's actually the reverb which is used as large natural churches itself. But anyways, now imagine your footsteps in a tiled bathroom and versus a cathedral. These are two very different sounds, and the thing that makes them different is the reverb, the amount of reverb which is there. So this is just a basic menu of a reverb. So this is the time amount, so 409.0 milliseconds, which means the reverb will travel that much. There's a pre-delay of 0. Milliseconds, which means before the sound is played, how much do you want the reverb to be there. So that is basically pre-delay, and then time is the actual delay. So now let's get into the main mixing part of the window. This is the main mix window, as we already spoke. So this are the D3CL is the compressors, the EQ 7 band. This is a 7 band. The 7 bands are high pass filter, then low pass filter, which is the two white dots. This is a high pass filter. This is a low pass filter. Then this is a low frequencies, low mid frequencies, mid frequencies, high mid frequencies, and high frequencies. So that is total 7 bands. So that's why it's called a 7 EQing 7 band. And revibe is basically the reverb. It's just the name of the reverb. So this is the EQing which shows you in the vocals. So this looks similar. This one, just note the pattern of this compared to what is shown over here. So just this basically, if there's any big correction which you need to do in the EQing, this basically just shows that to you. There is a IO, and all that I'll be talking about in future videos as well, or future meetings. And then basically this is the panning. So this is the panning to the left, panning to the right. So this is a stereo mix. So this means left, this is the right. So the left and the right both are being assigned to the left. So I've duplicated the track, which gives me a surround field, which gives you more of a lively field, which I like in my mixes personally. This is where you can control the amount of volume which is there. So that's minus 8.4. All this is minus 8.4. So which means that only I'm allowing minus 8.4 decibels instead of 0 decibels, because that was too loud with the EQing and all the mixing I did. So I wanted to reduce that for the perfect mix of mine. Now don't be shocked on the next slide. That is actually one of my friend's mixes. That's how a mix looks. I know it's crazy. That is actually for a film which he has done, and that has this is barely like 1/4 of the entire mix. This was literally a big mix, and that was just for two scenes. So that is all about mixing. Now we're going to get into mastering. So mastering is a bit more in detail, which I'm not talking about this because it is not required for this. But general idea about mastering is when recording an album, artists sometimes use various studios, various producers, engineers for different songs. They also use different microphones and different equipment. So the result in that each song will have its own sound sonically. And mastering is the process of making all those songs come together or joining or sounding coherent and part of the same album. So a good mastering engineer has impeccable ears. He has like first class ears, which means he can listen to that tiniest of the tiniest frequency which is leaking or peaking or whatever. And he'll also raise the level of all the tracks so that they are loud and even in volume by putting each song through the same mastering gear. So that's how mastering is done. As you can see in the screen, he's adjusting the different knobs for different pans and different tracks. So it makes them sound more like they're coming from the same album. So since many bedroom musicians like all of us or home studio producers record tracks individually without any intention to combine them into a longer album, the role of a mastering engineer is reduced as there is no need to make a collection of songs sound coherent. So the main function is then boiled down to just making the final mix sounding accurate. Meaning it will translate the sound as intended on different playback systems, but at the same time it will also try to bring up the level as loud as the artist wants it. So the mastering is generally done by the production engineer as well as the artist together. Artists sometimes, but mainly is done by the production engineer. So that's pretty much it. Now these are some recommended apps which I'm going to like let you know guys for your future information, or where you can also get resources. So this is Genius. It has amazing articles on different artists, on how they produce their music, so you can get some really good inspiration from there. Then also it has song lyrics to everything, and top hit songs and everything. There's also an app for it that's really good. There's Guitar Tuner. It's you can also learn guitar lessons on this. Spotify is like Apple Music only. Then, as we again spoke, BandLab, Music Memos, GarageBand, Real Guitar, chord progressions. There's also AUXY Pro, Beatmaker, Discogs, and further resources which you can use are lindia.com. They have some really good lessons for about 25 dirhams a month, which is about, I would say, about 100 dirhams, but it's totally worth it. I also learned a lot through Lindia, and considered one of the best video lesson sites online. But now, of course, there's LinkedIn Learning, and apart from that, there's also YouTube. But Lindia actually gives you a good amount of information. There's also Gearslads, which is when you have a question regarding the learning process, it is the message board, which is the place you go to. I've not used it personally, but I've heard it that it's really good from my friends. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. I know it's been a really long presentation, almost what, 1 hour 18 19 minutes now. So do you guys have any questions? I'm just gonna, any questions, guys? I think all of us can switch on our videos and microphones probably, and then just be.
One question here, dude.
Yeah, dude, sure. Go for it, Ron.
Yeah, so like, how do I know when my song is finished if I start one? How do I get to know when it gets over? Like,
how do you know? You get to know that it's you mean production wise? Do you mean like
songwriting, based on songwriting?
Yeah, so songwriting, I would generally say that you have to, that's what, dude, you have to research on genre of song you're making. So if you're going something like hip hop, I would say you start with the chorus, you start with the verse, then you go to the chorus, then you go to second verse, and then again chorus, and then end with the third verse. And then you start to fill up with the small gaps, like bridge, which connects the chorus and the verse together. So things like that. So if
so you start with chorus then. Okay.
It basically depends on your song structure. Rohan.
Exactly. So it depends on your song genre and structure. So that's why you have to research a lot and read basically a lot. So how I wrote my songs was I spend at least about 1 or 2 hours per day minimum, even if it's like midnight, on my keyboard or my guitar. And I play chords and just experiment, and when I just sing things randomly, and that's how I get. So it is basically, my songs, if you look, is more meaning it is more towards the meaning compared more towards the actual rhyming part of it.
Okay.
So it completely depends on your genre and things like that. So yeah. Any other questions? Hope you guys understood every basics of music production, and also looking forward to seeing you all in any future sessions or anything. So thank you so much for being an amazing audience and staying through this entire session. Any questions if you guys have?
Thanks. It was really clear now for me. Thanks, Ayush.
Not a problem. Anytime. Do stay tuned for further. So I'll be explaining more about softwares as well, on how to produce on GarageBand or Logic Pro or Pro Tools as well.
Yeah, all cool.
Yeah, so you can just keep an like eye out for my page, and then you can see all the updates there.
Sure, fine. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks, man. It was a great session.
Thanks. Not a problem. Thank you for attending it. I know it is a little too long, but anyways.
No. It was actually very informative. That's all I wanted to know and all.
Thank you so much.